It is a world forged by fire and ice. A primeval landscape where extraordinary creatures have evolved. This is the Greater Yellowstone, home of the world's first national park, and arguably the greatest.
I mean, if that isn't the Old West, this is what it's supposed to be.
But even in this remote wilderness, humanity has left its indelible footprint. Outside the boundaries of the park, housing and energy development are growing at an alarming rate. And the habitat these animals so desperately need to survive is disappearing. Without these valleys, Yellowstone's wildlife might be lost to us forever. At stake, not simply a species or an ecosystem, but perhaps the very spirit of the American West. The Greater Yellowstone spans across Idaho, Montana, and Wyoming, throughout America's Rocky Mountains. At the heart of this 28 million acre ecosystem lies Yellowstone National Park. In summer, this is a lush and vibrant world. But this time of plenty is short-lived.
If you come here in the summer, the whole place is a grocery store for these animals, and they just can't eat fast enough. There's plenty of food here for them in the summertime. In the winter, it's a real different story.
As early as October, storms may begin rolling in from the Pacific Northwest, heralding the start of another winter. It is Yellowstone's season of reckoning. In winter, the park can be buried beneath up to 50 feet of snow, blanketing the grass and plants animals need to survive. Yellowstone National Park covers some 2.2 million acres, but in winter, animals must travel outside the safety of its boundaries to feed at lower elevations.
They move on down into these lower ranges that are on private ranch lands, and they are key to having the wildlife of Yellowstone. They're getting developed at a phenomenal rate. So it's our job to try to keep them intact.
In the last 2 decades, development in the Greater Yellowstone has exploded.
The population growth rate in the Greater Yellowstone region has been about twice the national average over the last 20 years. The loss of crucial winter habitat has been about 6 times the national rate. So we have been losing habitat at a frightening rate.
But hope comes in the form of some surprising partnerships.
There's a real convergence between ranchers and conservationists when it comes to protecting Yellowstone's wildlife, because we want what they want. We want to protect the land. We want to keep it in this traditional lifestyle where cows and wildlife can cohabitate and keep these areas from being developed. So there really is a coming together like you don't often see.
As many as 3,000 elk leave their summer range in Yellowstone Park to winter in Wyoming's Gray Bull River Valley on the windswept slopes of Carter Mountain. The journey to this critical winter range is becoming harder and harder every year.
The big pressures facing the Yellowstone ecosystem, I think, are every single day it's a little bit smaller. Every day there's a new home being built somewhere that it'd be nice if it wasn't.
Jerry Longobardi has spent the past 30 years protecting this migrating elk herd and their winter range.
So if you want to maintain high big game populations, which will also support the component of large predators, you have to have good, intact winter ranges. Without a doubt, the most important thing we could do is protect those.
Landowners hold the key to preserving open space and saving winter range. especially those who still own large, unbroken sections of land. Like much of the winter range in the greater Yellowstone, this is private land. Fortunately for this elk herd, most of their wintering ground lies on the Pitchfork Ranch. Working with the Nature Conservancy, the current owners of the Pitchfork have put the majority of the ranch under a conservation easement, which allows ranches to keep working the land, but guarantees that they can never be developed or subdivided. Much of the elk winter range in the upper Graybull River Basin will now remain whole for ranching and wildlife.
It's a fairly intact ecosystem still, and whether we can keep it that way or not, I don't know as far as the big picture is concerned, but this is one of the special places that's still in one piece.
But ranches on either side could still be developed.
It's going to take a lot of work, and people are going to have to give up a little bit to do it. Otherwise, we're going to lose what we all came here for.
Residential sprawl is only part of the development that threatens the greater Yellowstone. Some 500 miles away, on the southern edge of the Yellowstone ecosystem, the vast upper Green River Valley in Wyoming reaps more than $4 billion a year in natural gas. In the last decade, drilling here has accelerated at a record pace, which is bad news for the wildlife that lives here. Wyoming harbors a critical core of pronghorn populations, and in the greater Yellowstone, this is their most important wintering ground.
Rick, this is Pete. We've got some pronghorn information for you when you're ready. Over.
John Beckman and Pete Coppolillo have been studying and tracking the pronghorn population here.
What we're trying to identify is how fragmentation of landscape influences pronghorn survival and movements and use of winter range.
Their research includes mapping pronghorn movements so that they can identify the most critical areas for wintering wildlife. Places that energy developers can work around.
One of the big things that we're starting to see with our research in this area is that as the infrastructure, so well pads and roads, start to encroach upon critical pronghorn winter range, we are starting to see some evidence of abandonment by pronghorn in those areas.
What we're up to right here is to try to find ways that energy development can coexist with wildlife. So the idea is not to prevent energy development in this area. That's going to happen. It's already happening, and we're well down that road. The idea is to figure out what are the critical parts of the energy development process that can allow pronghorns or mule deer or other species to persist.
But John and Pete don't have much time. Just 45 miles south of Pinedale is untouched sagebrush country.
This is Big Sandy recreation area, and this is what a lot of the area around Pinedale used to be like before it was developed for gas. So pronghorns are still abundant here, and they're easy to see, and that makes it difficult to recognize that there's a problem. But it's important to remember that we're only between 6 and 10% into this project of developing the gas fields here, and so this place will change quite a bit, and this area will look a lot more like Pinedale. So that's one of the challenges, is trying to identify those thresholds before we cross them irrevocably and we can't go back.
John and Pete know that without precise data on where the pronghorns roam, they will have a hard time changing behaviors.
If you get there and you kind of work between the river and 351 and a little bit further west, I think there's about 1,200 animals in there, and you'll start seeing the groups.
For the past 5 years, they've been using radio collars to keep tabs on one herd. Each year, they must replace the old gear with new collars. But capturing pronghorns takes tremendous skill and patience, especially from the air.
So the helicopter's in the air, and we are trying to give them a little more information to work with.
pronghorn can run up to 60 miles per hour, so it can be a delicate and tricky operation to capture one safely. After several attempts, the team hits its mark. Over the next year, these new GPS collars will hopefully shed light on where these animals are moving and help inform the actions of energy companies, conservationists, landowners, and public agencies as they work together to preserve these critical winter grounds.
If you think about it, we've got over 6 billion people on this planet, and so this is a phenomena and a type of activity that's going to continue to be important globally, not just here. As humans have a larger and larger footprint, and so if we can generate data and get people to understand that we can have coexistence, then that would be a very good outcome.
Learning to coexist with wildlife is something Dennis Modell's family has been doing for more than 60 years.
I think my dad bought this place in about 1947, something like that. When I was about 19, 20, he died and then I've kind of run it ever since.
Just 20 miles from the western edge of Yellowstone Park in Idaho, Dennis's land straddles Henry's Lake, a narrow migration route. Each year, wildlife must pass through it to get to winter range.
We talk a lot about the value of winter range, but if the corridor that the animals need to get to that winter range becomes closed or starts to get blocked off by subdivisions or developments, what's the point? There's no value to that winter range if the animals can't get there.
The view from Dennis's window hasn't changed much in 60 years. But just down the road, new subdivisions are sprouting, building houses smack in the middle of ancient wildlife migration routes, making Dennis's land worth millions. It's a big temptation for any rancher, many of whom are just scraping by.
Well, when you're wondering when the hell the next cup of coffee and a can of beans, how he's going to buy that. And a lot of years, that's the way this country was. It was tough to make a living in. And it still is as far as the ranching goes,
But the value of Dennis's view and his way of life was hard to put a price on.
We put this all under development. I don't want to get up in the morning and look over 100 rooftops down here to see the lake.
It took 5 years and many cups of coffee to work things out.
My first opinion was a environmentalist government-run outfit that I didn't want,
In the end, Dennis put a conservation easement on his land, which gave him enough money to keep the ranch going.
I want to see it stay that way as a working ranch. There's a lot more things in life than money,
With a bit more work to secure conservation easements in the Henry's Lake area, there will never be houses marring Dennis's view, or more importantly, blocking these crucial migration corridors through the greater Yellowstone. From Idaho to Montana to Wyoming, we are recognizing our common values throughout the greater Yellowstone. We have the tools, the know-how, and the vision. Together, we can leave a legacy we are proud of and build lasting partnerships that respect traditional ways of life and protect the wide-open country and wildlife that makes this landscape so precious to us all.